So there I was, sitting on my couch, minding my own dang business the night before the Direct Partner Showcase. Then I start to get on my phone, I start scrolling. It's like 9-10 p.m. at this point. I'm so tired, I'm about to go to bed. I scroll and the first thing I see is Xenoblade potentially getting a new game, that there has been some sort of leak, and all I see is the picture of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And I about lose my ever-loving mind. I'll show you one at a time here, but these figures, this Pyra figure from Smash Brothers and this Mythra figure right here from Smash Brothers serves a little bit as proof as to my fandom for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and my fandom for Xenoblade in general. I am by no means a fake fan or some YouTuber that just mentions Xenoblade Chronicles just because they want to have something outside of Mario that they love. No, I have a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 collection of coasters with the characters on them, and I genuinely use them, and they are here, and I put my cups on them and my Gatorade, whatever the heck I have. I even have a Shulk figure from Smash Brothers that shows Xenoblade Chronicles 1 love. Then of course, you know, I've got to have Noah from Xenoblade Chronicles 3, probably one of my favorites. I don't know, you can't even say favorite, they're just all so good. And of course, you have to have Mio as well with Noah. And you can see now that my entire top shelf over here is completely gone because the top shelf for Amiibo here have been reserved for Xenoblade Chronicles. So let me go ahead and put these back now. Okay, they're finally back now. Here we go. And I am totally the type that would collect Amiibo just because I know I did a whole video about that. History is really cool to me. You can go watch that Amiibo video if you want to know why exactly I love Amiibo so much. And if that's not enough for you, here is all the time I have spent in these 3 games alone. I played them back to back to back in like 2024, I believe. I had bought all of them in a row and was just waiting to go through 1, 2, and 3. I did it all, and it was so good. It was so much fun. The series is amazing. So when I saw this tweet talking about this leak, talking about something going on with Xenoblade, I about lost my mind. Rumor, voice actor Paige leaks Xenoblade game for 2026, possible return of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Then you click that link, you go to the website called Spotlight. Now I am from the United States, I'm a filthy American, so I was able to look it up, and Spotlight is apparently a UK acting website that is like the #1 website over there, and they are able to get all these different actors on there with their credits. But all of these actors and actresses will put all of their credentials, and they will put what they have been working on this website, so that way people can see what the heck they have been up to lately, what's going on in their lives, and how they're able to get other connections and other jobs. Well, this lady, her name is Caitlin Thorburn, which, by the way, what a crazy great last name. Thorburn? That's awesome. Thorburn has on her website here on the Spotlight that she worked on a Xenoblade Chronicles game in 2026. Well, astute fans such as yourself and myself, hopefully, will know that there has been no Xenoblade game this year thus far. We have not seen a Xenoblade Chronicles game, but what she has done is worked on a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 game and voiced some background characters in that. She voiced Cosmo, which is apparently one of the hardest blades to get in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Blade being a type of system between driver and blade. You are the driver as the main character, as Rex, and Pyra is one of the blades, Mythra is one of the blades. They are very different than the other regular blades, but still, they are still blades, the type of people who can give the driver power to allow the driver to attack. And she also voiced 2 other people in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And to my knowledge, this voice actress has not worked on any other Xenoblade Chronicles titles, unless she was in some sort of small role that I was not able to see in a simple Google search. But still, she has been pretty much exclusively working with a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 game and not any of the others. So it is absolutely possible that we still get to see some other type of Xenoblade Chronicles game that's not just 2, that it could potentially be a 4 or some sort of other spin-off like X and X2, something completely different with Xenoblade. But from what we know right now, from everything she has worked on in the past, we know that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is our most likely bet for what could possibly be coming in 2026 or beyond, at least something revealed for this year. And boy, does that have me so unbelievably excited, because Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is a special game. Let me tell you right now, it is a special game. This was one of the reveals for Smash Brothers that didn't get as much pushback as I initially would have expected. Just having another RPG character from an anime-esque type game being a first-party game from Nintendo, especially coming off the heels of Byleth, I was shocked to see that Pyra and Mythra were received pretty well. Sure, nobody was super happy about it because they wanted Kratos or Master Chief or some crazy character like that, but still, it was something that was like, okay, there are people that are upset, there are people who are very happy, and then there are people in between that are like, yeah, Makes sense. It was the same kind of thing for Min Min getting into Smash Brothers. Like, not a lot of people thought that ARMS was going to be a series that was going to get representation, and if it did, they were really thinking it was going to be something like Springman, but instead of that, they decided to go creative route. Who won that ARMS tournament was Min Min. That was the most popular character that came out of ARMS, so they decided to put her in the game. Sakurai has been known to put in these types of characters into Smash Brothers, games that he really likes, games that are first-party representation for Nintendo. They will obviously always get greenlit, and so having characters like Pyra, like Mithra, it was great. Not only that, but they went on to be the best characters in the game for a time. So Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has a big legacy, and in my opinion, it is the biggest game that they have produced. And not only do I think it has had the most PR, the most positive reception, even though it also has gotten a lot of negative, which we will get to, trust me. But if we're looking at the sales numbers, even though I would personally say that Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 3 are probably a lot more receptive to the general public, to most people, those games did not sell even close to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. The initial Xenoblade Chronicles game did not even sell over 1 million copies worldwide on the Wii when it first released. Later on, it came together on the 3DS and sold about 500,000 copies, which was crazy, by the way, to put that type of game on the 3DS, for it to run relatively well and just to not even sell 500,000. It was pretty disappointing. Then, of course, it got its definitive edition with all of that content remastered, plus more, plus quality of life features, and that game went on to sell 1.9 million copies. A great number. A number I would be very surprised if it isn't at 2 million by now, because that was back in 2020, and the most recent financial reports don't tend to update those sales numbers unless they're bigger numbers. So for now, let's just say that Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition sold 2 million. Then Xenoblade Chronicles X released on the Wii U. That's the next game in this little lineup that we're doing here outside of 2. Xenoblade Chronicles X sold 150,000 units in Japan, 690,000 overseas, so about 800,000 combined. Again, a solid number, especially for a spin-off from that series. And at the time, it was just basically a follow-up to Xenoblade in a very different way. They didn't want to do the original formula because that formula didn't work super well, but then they decided to do something different, and for it to be Wii versus Wii U with those install bases, and for the Wii U version to sell almost identical to the initial game, that's pretty good. Xenoblade X had kind of like a cult following for a while there too, and then it really released on the Nintendo Switch last year in 2025, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and unfortunately for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, the game didn't hit 1 million sales because we did not get it in any sort of financial reports. They've never mentioned the game again. It's estimated to have sold about 700 to 800,000 units, but it didn't do very well apparently. But that's okay, because for whatever reason, Monolith Soft is able to make all of these games, probably because they help a lot with all of the other studios. They were a big part of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Animal Crossing's development. They have been a big factor in making other Nintendo games look good, because the Xenoblade games are amazing in terms of graphical fidelity, in terms of all that they're able to accomplish with those series. So they have somewhat of a free reign to do whatever they want in terms of their own studio, as long as it makes a decent amount of profit, which I'm sure they have reasonable expectations set. But for X, it was kind of a failure in terms of not even hitting 1 million. Like, I really would have thought it hit 1 million, and by this point, maybe it has, and they just didn't talk about it, but it's not something that a lot of people are bringing up, so maybe they just didn't even decide it was worth to put it in the reports, but still, didn't sell super well. Then, of course, as soon as I was recording this and editing this, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition Switch 2 Edition comes out. This edition only provides a 60 FPS and 4K upgrade to this game's graphical fidelity. It looks a lot better, it runs a lot better. I am finally going to be able to come back to this game because there was rumors about this being patched and that this was going to happen and that we were going to get some sort of free upgrade or something. It's back in the Switch 2 days when we didn't even know what the Switch 2 was. When this game released, we knew in the files that it had capabilities to go up to this level. They just waited a year for whatever reason to upgrade the game. So now we have this game in its best form, and that's so weird that we didn't get this, but it doesn't at all interfere with anything going on with Xenoblade 2 and the purpose of this video. We just now know that we can play this game on our Switch 2s for $5 extra, which is kind of annoying because all the other Switch 2 editions added content, and if not, it was just a free upgrade, so we have to pay $5 for this. Then you get the physical edition on April 16th, but that's all for this update. Then you have Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the one that I think most people would agree has the peak moment in the entire series. In that one chapter specifically, if you have played the game, you know what I mean. It probably has the highest highs of the entire series. Now, of course, the beginning and the end was up to interpretation to a lot of people in terms of how great it was. I don't know if anyone can definitively say any of these games are the best. If I had to say objectively, one game for all people was objectively the best, it'd probably be 3. 3 would probably be it, but still, let's look at 3 sales. Xenoblade 3 is sitting at about 1.9 million units, which is still pretty good, right? I would have expected it to be higher. They marketed the heck out of that game. It released around the same time as Splatoon 3, and that was before it released, so maybe there was a chance that that was going on. It released right around the time of Splatoon 3, and I will always remember that they had said Splatoon was going to be slated for that summer release, and then they had Xenoblade in the fall. Well, Splatoon apparently needed a little bit more time to cook, a little bit more time to develop, so they moved up Xenoblade Chronicles 3, told us it was coming out in the fall, ended up releasing it like in July. Splatoon 3 then got pushed back, which was probably a lot better for Xenoblade, because if you release a huge Splatoon game and then a couple months later you get a Xenoblade 3 game, a lot of people who would have been willing to buy probably aren't going to go to the stores specifically to pick up two games, one more niche and one a lot more what they would expect to be great for the same price point. But still, 1.9 is nothing to sneeze at. It's a pretty great number. It's not something that I'm going to look at and say it's spectacular. I wish it did better. I think Monolith Soft wishes it does better as well, but still, for what it was an amazing game. Now, all of these numbers are kind of within the same ballpark, right? If you hit about 700,000, that's about the floor for these games. Around that mid-range is 1 to 2 million, where it's like if you hit 1.5, you did pretty good with your game. Then we have Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition that sold 1.9 million, probably closer to 2 million. Man, you hit 2 million, that's amazing. So in the context of all that has come before, that all we've talked about, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 sold 2.7 million copies. 2.7. Now, of course, again, like the disclaimer I gave earlier, that's a number that's probably not entirely accurate right now. I'm sure more people have gone on to buy it, and I'm sure that number is probably closer to about 3 million by now. So if I'm rounding up for Xenoblade Definitive Edition, I'm going to round up for 2 and say 3 million. Monolith Soft has to be looking at that game and saying, 3 million copies. Wow. What in the world can we do to make this happen for all of the games, or at least to replicate a game's success like that again? I think in 3, they did a phenomenal job being able to come back to it and say, okay, 2 had a lot of great stuff going for it. It had a lot of controversy though. It had a lot of weird things that most people overseas were not very happy with. Some weird stuff in Japanese culture that made it a little bit too weird, a little bit, I don't know, I don't want to talk about it too much, but it was just kind of freaky. It was just weird stuff. The intro was just the hardest part to get over for so many people. The combat, the tutorials were not explained at all. The game really suffered in the graphical department in so many ways, because even though Monolith Soft was able to put this massive world on the Nintendo Switch in the launch year no less, it still had a lot of issues, and you can tell it was very much rushed out the door. One could make an argument Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the most flawed game in the series. It has the most issues and the most that could really use a big re-release. Now you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it just came out. It was in the Switch's launch year. Well, I'm gonna look at you in the eyes here, and I'm gonna hold your hand, and I'm gonna say, that was almost 10 years ago. It released in December of 2017. I'm sorry, I let go of your hand. Ugh, a little sweaty there, but in 2017, this game released, and it's now 2026. Here we are almost 9 years later. It's almost been a decade at that point. And you're telling me that Monolith Soft with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the failure of Xenoblade Chronicles X in terms of it not being a million seller, Xenoblade 1 selling about 1.9 million in the definitive edition, seeing, oh wow, if we really re-release these games, they will get sold. Do you really mean to tell me that Monolith Soft isn't looking at all these numbers, isn't looking at all that they've done, and is saying, you know what? I think we should go back to this game. I think we should perfect every single part of Xenoblade 2, add some more content, make the graphics way better, way nicer, make it more palatable to the average consumer by making the tutorials easier, and potentially even altering some of the content. Because I will say, there is a lot I love about Xenoblade 2. It's probably the most emotional a game has ever made me personally, but there are some issues that I really had to overlook and just kind of be like, oh, okay, oh, nope. And I think especially for the Western audience, and if they have any hope of this game selling even close to the initial sales, they're going to want to have to update this content in a way that is substantial enough to get people to care. And another reason I think that this number is probably more closer to 3 million than 2.7 is because of the Smash Brothers inclusion, like I said earlier. Sure, Shulk was in Smash Brothers as well. That was probably one of the reasons that it was able to help boost the sales of Definitive Edition, having Shulk in the Wii U and 3DS game. But when Pyra and Mythra were put into Smash Brothers, that is one of the games that truly is able to market other games. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a series like Smash Brothers in my history of existing, and for most other people's, and even looking back before I was alive, so many different games have tried to do something similar, like Multiverse, honestly, and they've never been able to accomplish it to the same level of just marketing other games within your game. Revealing a character like Pyra and Mythra, having it go into Smash Brothers, having millions and millions, like 20 to 30 million people play as these characters, get this DLC, see see this hype and be like, where are they from? I love playing as Pyra and Mythra. They're the most powerful characters in this game. How can I figure out what their origin is? How can I know more about this backstory? They're going to look back and they're going to see Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Oh, it's on the Switch. I can buy it right now. And look at that. Xenoblade games go on sale fairly often. Pretty much every single holiday, every single big sale that they do, they try to give it 20 to 30% off because those games are great. And they are the types of games that most people would not indulge in at a full price. So I'm pretty sure a lot of those people, especially from Smash Brothers, decided, you know what? I want to give it a shot. I want to see what this game is all about. And I'm pretty sure that most of them, if they are regular human beings, most of them probably were not able to overlook some of the crappy stuff that went on within the first couple chapters of this game. But of course, very similar to other JRPGs, the game is not going to give you a very accurate representation of the entire experience until you get about halfway through, which for many people is about 40 to 50 hours, and that is not enough of a time commitment that people are willing to make. I went into it knowing that there was going to be weird stuff that I was just going to have to turn my eye to, but how many people from Smash Brothers, how many people that were interested in this game, especially after that big Switch presentation in which it was heavily marketed, and so many people in that first year were just willing to buy games to be able to play them on the go, playing such big, massive worlds like in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It was such a cool experience, and so many people bought it simply because they wanted to buy it. Simply because they had a new console. That's the kind of hype that you don't see very often, and that is the kind of hype that led this game to have 2.7 million sold on the actual books themselves, and then 3 million in my guesstimation. So I really do hope, if you aren't a Xenoblade fan, if you didn't know a lot about Xenoblade, that this video was able to help you understand a little bit more, because there is a lot going on with this series and a lot with this franchise that so many people are not taking into consideration as to why this is getting so much love. I see a lot of times people saying that Xenoblade games get so much content, that we are just always eating good. And I would argue that's not necessarily the case. Like, yes, compared to Star Fox, F-Zero, Golden Sun, like these dead franchises, sure, you're eating good compared to them. But compared to other franchises that Nintendo makes games for semi-regularly, this is pretty normal. I know it's really frustrating for people to see 3D Mario go almost a decade without a brand new game, and then you have yourselves like 3 Xenoblade games within the meantime. But honestly, it's just the studio making better use of their assets and being able to do what they want to do, and other studios just don't get that luxury. Monolith Soft genuinely is able to do whatever they want, and I believe that because we have seen it. Xenoblade, it was released on the Wii, then it was released on the Wii overseas. Then we were able to get a re-release for the Wii U. Then for the Wii U, we were able to get Xenoblade X. They decided to make another game that was totally different because why not? Because we just want to do something crazy. For Wii U standards, it sold pretty well. So what did they do? Within a couple years time, about 3 years of development, they released Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which came about 6 years after the very first game. That game sold very well over the life of the Switch. Smash Brothers got involved and you were able to see Pyra and Mythra in there. Sold about 3 million. Then on the Switch, we also got in 2020, 3 years after 2, a 1 definitive edition about 9 years after the first game's release. Are we seeing a trend here? Then we got about 2 to 3 years later a brand new mainline game. 2022, we got Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Then, going along with this trend even more, 3 years after the mainline installment, we get the re-release of Xenoblade Chronicles X, Definitive Edition, with some more content, spruced up graphics, quality of life features. Now here we are, similar to Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2X, 2.2, we are 9 years past. We are 9 years away, so now you should think 9 years between, we're getting a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Definitive Edition, and oh my goodness, if they do that, I'm gonna lose my mind, because I will just be so excited to see what they do differently, what they decide to fix, how they're going to make it more palatable, how people are going to be able to get into the series even more, how they're gonna fix it. Oh, I want to replay the game. I really do. It's been so long since I went through those games. It's been 3 years now at this point, but still, those games have such a special place in my heart. And so I cannot wait to get a hold of this. I hope this rumor is true. I hope that all of this is in fact pointing towards a Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And I honestly didn't even realize until I started yapping there that this kind of is a consistent thing. It is also possible that we get some sort of Xenoblade Chronicles 4, even though it does match up with the timeline in terms of getting a new definitive edition. It also would make sense to me if we got a brand new mainline game. The only thing with that is that 3 kind of wrapped up that storyline really, really well. We got 3, and then we got some DLC, and it kind of intertwined all of these games together to tell a big, beautiful story that ended very well, in my opinion. I don't know what they would do if they were to go back to that world and tell that same kind of story again, or maybe they do like the 2 method where they do something completely different in the universe, in the stratosphere of this place. Last year, I did kind of a Xenoblade love letter to the series, and I was able to go through every single game with my unfiltered thoughts, knowing that it wasn't going to do very well, and to have a really cool edit at the very beginning of that video where I kind of went through each game and did some cutscenes, and it was great. You should go watch it when you get the chance. I had such a good time with that. But in that video, I kind of talked about the future of Xenoblade and how I thought that 4 probably wasn't coming, that we were going to get some sort of new IP from Monolith Soft, that we were going to get something different in that vein. Kind of similar to how Persona, those developers at Atlas decided to make Metaphor ReFantazia, which ended up being a great game, rather than focusing all of their development assets on a Persona 6. They just wanted to do something completely different, and that's totally fine. And it was the same type of JRPG style, but it was just in a different world, a different setting. So I wouldn't be mad at Monolith Soft if they did something like that either, but still, this is telling. This is telling that we're probably going to get some sort of Xenoblade game this year, and even though a lot of people say we eat good, because technically we do get games like every 2 to 3 years, we don't eat as good as many people would think. Kirby, I feel like that is the series that eats the best. Those games get like 2 to 3 releases per year, it feels like. And of course, people say like, oh, Mario never gets this type of love. Mario gets this love all the time. What are you talking about? It may not be a 3D Mario and a 2D Mario every year, but you're getting spin-offs. You're getting sports games. You're getting Mario Party, Mario Kart, all of these different games and DLC. You're getting a movie for Mario. You're getting a book. It's crazy. You get all kinds of stuff as a Mario fan. So I'm not going to sit here and whine like a lot of people I feel like do with Xenoblade, because Zelda gets stuff every year. Now we're even seeing like a big resurgence of Donkey Kong with the past couple years. We're getting a Donkey Kong movie probably. Xenoblade is getting love, but it's not getting all the love. It's not getting a ton of games every single year. So that's the news. Potentially a Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That's my breakdown of it all, why it makes sense, why I desperately want it, and why it kind of desperately needs it, why Monolith Soft might want it. All of the whys have been answered in this video. So thank you so much for making it to the very end. Make sure you like and subscribe if you did enjoy. Click that notification bell to know exactly when my videos do release. Make sure you also leave a comment letting me know all of your thoughts below about Xenoblade, about your interest in the series or disinterest in the series, what you think about these games. Am I crazy? Tell me all about that. And also consider joining my membership program to get early access to some of my videos and a bunch of cool perks for yourself. It really does help me. Well, if you do want to see my video talking about Xenoblade Chronicles and the whole history of that series, my love for it, click on the left side of your screen. And to see my love of Amiibo, click on the right side of your screen to see my breakdown of all of that. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. Make sure you have yourself a phenomenal day. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I will see you all in the next video.